On the line with us is the former Prime Minister of Haiti and the author of The Hands of the Prime Minister, an illustrated conversation with Haiti's longest-serving head of government, Laurent Lamothe. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, you are.
Hey, welcome to the program, and thank you so much for joining us. You are generally widely regarded as having been a very, very good Prime Minister for Haiti. And I'm curious your thoughts about in what we know about the assassination yesterday of Haiti's current, most recent president, what we know and what this means, both for Haiti and for the region and the world.
Well, first of all, the president you have to know that he only had 6 months left on his 5-year mandate. The president had just basically concluded an agreement, a deal with the opposition to pave the way for elections. So there was no political reason for this to happen. However, the president was engaged in a very, very harsh reforms program, reforms in different sectors, which he then had, some enemies that wanted to see him, not be there anymore to see those reforms through. So it's a complicated situation. And they did what the unthinkable, which is hire, 28 foreign mercenaries to assassinate a sitting president. This is from the movies.
Yeah. So you're of the opinion, number one, that these were foreign mercenaries. Number two, I'm curious, what kinds of reforms were these? I mean, sometimes reforms work to the benefit of the people. Sometimes things that are called reforms just work to the benefit of a particular elite or friends of the president kind of thing. What was actually happening? Okay,
so those are foreign mercenaries because they arrested several of them, and you have 2 Haitian Americans, one of which his name is James Solage, and he lives in Fort Lauderdale, and he had moved to Haiti. Recently he was involved in security. He was working for a security company in Haiti. And then the others, they're foreign. They're some are Venezuelan, some are Colombians. So this was a contracted hit. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the reforms that the president was doing, he did a very extensive electricity reform, and that reform led him to have a lot of enemies in that sector. So basically, what he did is he took out some private companies and then hired General Electric to provide electricity to Haiti. So basically, that left a lot of unhappy individuals locally, and those were openly and actively against him.
Interesting.
But but this is why I call for an international investigation, because this has to be done professionally. Pointing to people without it, the investigation would not serve any purpose. And it's important to have a very thorough, methodical first autopsy, and then an international panel to come together, like was done for Prime Minister Rafik Hariri when he was assassinated in Lebanon, to have the same thing for the president of Haiti, which was a democratically elected president, which had basically been elected with 55% of the vote, and who only had 6 months to go through his mandate. So it's only fair to call for an international investigation to get to the bottom of this and bring those responsible to justice.
Wasn't there supposed to be an election 6 months ago, and he postponed that?
No. The election, he set the election for September 26th of this year.
I see. Okay. I'd read reporting to that effect.
Yeah, there was a referendum for a new constitution that was postponed, but not the presidential and legislative election. Those were set for September 26th.
So, I think a lot of Americans, and I sadly, I confess, I'm part of this group, are, have not been keeping track of what's going on politically in Haiti. I mean, the last big Haiti story was the earthquake, more than a decade ago. What is the political status is the wrong word, but what is the state of Haiti politically? How's the country doing politically, economically? How are the people doing? What I understand that with COVID ravaging the world, that Haiti does not have a high level of vaccination, for example. What's going on down there?
Yeah, so the COVID, fortunately, Haiti was not hard hit by the COVID. Recently, there's been an uptick in cases, with the new variant. We see about 150 to 200 cases per day, which is, compared to the rest of the world, that's relatively small. So COVID-wise, we were fortunate to have been spared because Haiti has very weak health infrastructures. I mean, we have few hospitals because, we're coming back from one of the world's most devastating earthquakes that destroyed basically everything in the capital. So we've had to rebuild, and it's going to be a long and difficult process, and one that's going to take time.
Yeah. And
one that will take several more years. So now politically, the biggest problem that in my view Haiti has is its constitution, because the constitution is setting us up to fail, and this is why the president also wanted to. Well, basically, for example, I mean, one of the most interesting constitutional points is that all Haitians living abroad are completely put aside, so they don't have any rights. So the minute that you leave Haiti, or the minute that you don't have, you live abroad from a diaspora standpoint, they are completely set aside. There is
no longer vote, for example.
They cannot vote. They cannot, for example, go to an election. Okay, they cannot. Owning land is a problem for them. So the Constitution completely, bars them from any political or civil rights in this case. Also, we've had a lot of political instability. So we've had 25 governments in 30 years, which is basically an average of 1.5. One government for every 1.5 years. So this is you're going nowhere with something like that.
Right.
And then, but on the political point, the president is elected by the people. The minute he's elected, he's unable to carry out any of his priorities, any of his campaign promises, because he doesn't control the government, right? So he has to nominate a prime minister, deal with Congress, etc. And that prime minister sometimes has to come from the opposition. A lot of, for example, this president, most of his prime ministers came from the opposition party. So those have their own agendas and not necessarily the president's priorities in mind. So this creates also development issues for the country.
Right. Speaking of development issues, I was in Haiti back in the 1980s on behalf of an international relief agency based out of Germany. I've been there several times. And my sense of it was that there's not a substantial natural resource base. Many of the forests are gone. There's not, like giant oil reserves or iron mines or anything like that. That the country has always struggled as a consequence in part of that lack of natural resources. And that an awful lot of what I was seeing, and I met with the, I forget his actual title, but sort of minister of I think rehabilitation was the word back then. This was in the 80s, but it was basically the guy in charge of infrastructure within the country. And it seemed like the major thing that was keeping the country afloat at that point in time was foreign aid. Is that still, first of all, was my assessment back in the 1980s accurate of what I was seeing? And secondly, is that still very much the case? What can people do to help Haiti achieve some semblance of self-government and governance and stability? Well,
the first thing is Haitians to help themselves with a good constitution, one that basically, protects the rights of its citizens, that protects foreign direct investment.
And can engage the Haitian
jobs.
diaspora. It's huge here in the United States.
And welcoming the Haitian diaspora, because they're thriving in the U.S. They count for over 40% of our GDP.
Wow.
By spending $4.6 billion a year in remittance, yet the Constitution today bars them from anything. So this incentive, there is no incentive for them to come and do anything really in terms of investment in the country, because owning land is a problem also for them. So that gives you that paints you the picture of what they're living. So it's something that has to be relooked at. So now once we have a new constitution, then it's looking at Haiti as an investment destination with our beautiful beaches and our natural landscape that we have to offer the rest of the world, just like the Dominican Republic does and earns over $4 billion a year in tourism revenue. And it's the same island, same land, and Haiti has more beautiful beaches, except that the governance between the two countries is completely different. So we need to help ourselves, and then we ask others to help.
Yeah.
That's my approach to this development.
I think it's brilliant. Laurent Lamothe, the former Prime Minister of Haiti, the author of The Hands of the Prime Minister, an illustrated conversation with Haiti's longest-serving head of government. LaurentLamothe.com is the website, and LaurentLamoth is the Twitter handle. Prime Minister Lamothe, thank you so much for dropping by today. Great talking with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.